Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we do have a yellow thunderstorm warning issued in the west for the rest of this evening, as we are continuing to see some pretty hefty thunderstorms in places. This will continue over the next few days, as we'll see from the latest UKV and Rome runs, but again it is likely to remain fairly isolated, not widespread. The majority, 90% of people, are going to remain dry and warm with plenty of sunshine, but for some where we see a bit of instability, we could see those storms, and we'll highlight that when we have a look at those shorter range runs. And then we'll have a look at the longer range, as we are continuing to look like it could go a little bit more changeable for the last week or so of May. Definitely plenty of warm and dry weather in there, but it's not going to be persistent. It's not going to last for more than a couple of days at a time, as we do frequently see lower pressure moving our way and small breakouts. No massive deluges in from the west, but definitely small breakouts of westerly winds will mean that we're not going to see uninterrupted sunshine and warmer conditions, but hopefully the majority of the time it shouldn't be too bad. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe. And remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now if you start on the live radar, you can see it's largely dry with some thunderstorm outbreaks. First of all, we've got an outbreak across parts of central Scotland here over the Highlands, and again pretty severe where they do take off, but as you can see overall across the whole of Scotland it is fairly isolated in these central areas. There's another small breakout of isolated storms towards the southwest of Scotland here. Again, pretty severe if you're in some of these redder colours, but you can see they are covering a village or two, really not a large area. Very slow moving, so could cause disruption in those small areas, but for most, not too bad. And then we head further southwards and we can see an outbreak of thunderstorms across the West Midlands, through towards Wales, and then across towards southwest England. Here it's a little bit more widespread, but once again, the really severe stuff, the darker reds, are really only popping off in the central parts of these storms. And again, probably most frequent here across the West Midlands into Wales, but still a few across southwest England. Continues to be pretty lively through this evening, and we could see a couple breaking out further eastwards, but we're not seeing any major indications on the live radar at the moment. We do put on the temperatures. You see where we avoid those storms, it's a pretty warm day. Temperatures across central areas, especially into North England and Scotland, are up towards the low 20s, widely sort of 22 to 23 degrees, as we are seeing a fairly warm air mass and plenty of sunshine. Again, no heat wave, just a standard early summer day, and it is pretty decent out there indeed, and it'll continue like that over the next few days. Now we've got this weather warning issued for western areas that was put into force earlier this morning, and it expires in around 3 hours time. Whilst not all places will see them, slow moving heavy showers and thunderstorms may lead to flooding and disruption. There's potential for this even getting extended, or similar warning issued in other areas over the next couple of days, where it's very short notice again for slow moving thunderstorms. 20-30 millimeters an hour or two, maybe 40 to 50 millimeters, and showers and storms will fade during Saturday evening. Now if we do go over to the latest UKV now and have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, you can see through this afternoon those thunderstorms breaking out really around the lunchtime into the middle afternoon to late evening, lasting to around 7-8 p.m. before slowly dissipating away. We'll have a look at the Rome run in a minute. It is a little bit more high resolution, and it does show the potential for a few other pop-up storms as well. Overnight, a pretty dry night, but as we head into Sunday, we could see some more storms across southern Scotland and more across the Republic of Ireland. As we head through into Monday, another really quite nice start into the afternoon. Again, a few isolated storms. Really doesn't look too bad here at all, but remember, these can crop up at very short notice. The storms we've seen today really only cropped up in the last 24 hours in their frequency and severity. We knew there was an instability around, we knew there would be showers, but only really a warning was issued early this morning, so only a few hours notice. There is the risk again through Monday of a similar scenario. If we head into Tuesday, a bit more instability around, so more showers and more storms. And as we have alluded to over the past few videos, as we head into Wednesday, it's going to become a lot more unsettled with heavy rain down the east coast and just generally more cloud and showers. Across southern areas, it doesn't look too terrible, but definitely doesn't look particularly great. Still showers around, probably cooler conditions with a bit more lower pressure and cooler air mixing in. And you can see that out in the Atlantic, so much fresher air trying to come in. So we'll have to see exactly what happens towards the second half of next working week. But for the time being, doesn't look too bad in the next sort of 3 or 4 days, just getting worse around that Wednesday period. Do look at the max temperatures this afternoon, look at that widely towards the 20-degree range. Slightly below that, we have showers and cloud. Above that, we have more sunshine. As we head into Sunday, a similar story, more widespread actually, 20 to 23, maybe even a 24 or 25 is possible. And again, as we head into Monday, a similar story, not quite as warm in some areas, maybe a degree or two down, but still looking at 21 or 22 as the top temperature. Into Tuesday, slightly cooler again, but still could see 21, 22, and this is because we're starting to see more instability, so more showers and more cloud. And then as we head into Wednesday, still maybe a 21 or 22 in a few isolated areas across southern England, but most areas back into the teens as we see thicker cloud, outbreaks of rain, just generally a slightly chillier feel. Now, if you go over to the Rhone run, just have a look at the thunderstorm risk. Over the next 36 hours or so, you can see the storms breaking out through the afternoon. You can see they do continue through this evening, probably reaching their peak severity as I'm recording this, to be honest. And you can see there could be a few back edge storms around 8-9 p.m. across parts of the West Midlands, maybe towards the south of London. Not insane levels of Cape, but moderate amounts of Cape. So if we did see a few showers getting triggered, they could be pretty lively. The storms do sort of gradually dissipate away overnight. And as we get into Sunday, initially not too bad, but as we get into the afternoon, we could see again some outbreaks of storms, especially to the south of London, southern parts of the Republic of Ireland that the UKV picked up on as well, and across the border towards Scotland, especially towards southern Scotland there. So we need to keep a pretty close eye on that, as it could be pretty lively in places, but perhaps not quite as widespread as we've seen earlier today or at the moment. Now, if you have a look at the longer range, you can see high pressure is in control, but we're still seeing a bit of low pressure to our south, and that is why we're seeing those thunderstorms. However, high pressure continues to control over the next few days, and that's why it is still largely dry and warm. But eventually, low pressure doesn't move back in, forming actually across Europe, quite an unusual direction for low pressure to move from the southeast to the northwest, skirting up our east coast. But it does, and we do see rain during the week and generally unsettled conditions. Then we see some briefly higher pressure before another low potentially budges in, and you can see what I mean by very changeable conditions, because by the end of the run we have got low pressure over the top of us, so very up and down, very changeable. So plenty of dry and warmer days in there, but equally some days of showers, thunderstorms, and maybe some persistent rain, but it doesn't look too overwhelming at this stage. If you compare to the GM, again, low pressure to our south, but generally higher pressure is in control. It will continue to dominate before eventually we see that low moving through towards Wednesday, Thursday, and then high pressure will return for a couple of days, but we see another low trying to push back in, and this is the epitome of oscillating between high pressure towards Iceland, high pressure down towards Central Europe and towards the Azores, and it's trying to extend its way towards us, whereas cooler, low pressure is trying to push its way in, and you can see the dividing line between warm air to our south and cool air to our north. Here we're in a colder sector at this stage compared to average really, but we've just come out of a warmer sector, cooler sector, and we're going to see these oscillating potentially as we head through the last week of May, as we do see variable pressure patterns. If you could finish by looking at the latest eastern blue, very similar with low pressure to our south. High pressure continues to be in control though as we head into the early parts of next week. Eventually low pressure moves back in for Wednesday, and then we do see again this oscillating pattern of high pressure, low pressure. East of the F probably has a high pressure holding on a little bit more than the GEM does, and you see this with slightly warmer air masses. Those cooler air masses are further away, but regardless, we'll still need to keep an eye as it could still bring rain at times. You can see this, the precipitation is not over the top of us, just out to our northwest, and even though we're still seeing plenty of rain, majority of that rain coming through that area of precipitation through Wednesday, Thursday, you can see it is largely drier to the west of that, as the general track of the lows you can see is more out in the Atlantic. Now, if we finish by looking at the latest ensembles, you can see generally above average over the next sort of 5 days, and then we see that big precipitation spikes in the middle of next week, and that's when that low moves in from the southeast. And then we generally return to average. We were showing a bit more above average over the past few days, but it's trended back towards average, and I think that's just due to a lot more scatter appearing here. And you see generally precipitation is kind of moderate amount. It's not ridiculously high. It's not bone dry. Again, pretty much backing the idea of pretty changeable conditions. 2 meter temperatures don't look too bad, looking around the low 20s at the moment, back more towards the mid to high teens probably next week into the following weekend as it does turn a little bit chillier. Inevitably, with more Atlantic air masses, more changeable conditions, more showers, it's always going to be a few degrees cooler than it is now, but it doesn't look cold at all, and generally it is still looking fairly decent for the time of year. If you do finish by looking at the latest ECMWF ensembles, again, generally above average at the moment, dip next week as we do see that low move through a bit more of a marked dip here than we saw on the GFS, and then a return back towards average with some scatter. Again, highly variable precipitation amounts, longer term, maybe slightly more than the GFS had, but really it's that period, Wednesday, Thursday next week, where we see some big spikes appearing here. So we need to keep an eye on that, as that could be pretty miserable indeed in places if that rain does move further inland. You can see from the latest UKV earlier in the video, it does really skirt the east coast, but if it comes further inland and a lot more people could be having a pretty miserable 24 hours there, with lots of heavy rain, stronger winds, and just generally colder conditions. Inevitably under that cloud and rain, it will probably not get much above the low teens. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. Make sure you enjoy the next few days of generally warmer, drier weather. But if you get caught in those thunderstorms, make sure you do stay safe, as they could be very lively and severe in isolated areas. There could be 5-mile differences between flash flooding and bone dry conditions. So do stay safe out there. And anyway, I'll see you again for another video